Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. We've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from LA. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. Guys, how we doing today?
Leave me alone, Skip.
You done?
I ain't up for your glory. No. I'm not up for your bragging, Skip.
Oh. Move over, LeBron James. LA is now Georgetown. Welcome back, Playoff P, and welcome home for Game 6. 1 down, 2 to go. Here we go.
No. All you do is bragging.
I'm not bragging. I'm just spitting facts.
Your
Did you just say move over LeBron?
Yes,
Playoff P is here. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. All right, Playoff P, he showed up last night, and that has everything to do with why the Clippers got the win, and they have begun yet another comeback attempt this postseason. Paul George led the way last night for LA with a game-high 41 points to grab the 116-102 win in Phoenix. Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson combined for 45 points as the Clippers were able to lead for a majority of the game and force a Game 6 tomorrow night in L.A. So, Shannon, what is the biggest reason the Clippers won this one?
Skip, I did not see this coming. We talked about this yesterday, Skip. I said, well, okay, who's gonna be the guy that go get you 41 and 41? I did not see Paul George going for 41, and I did not see Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson combining to go to get 45. Skip, but I thought the Clippers wanted it more. They started with a small lineup. I don't know, maybe Zubac was hurt.
No, he is hurt.
He's hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, so they started with a small lineup.
Sprained knee. I don't know.
I'm thinking that, you know what, they're gonna punish him inside. Aiton's gonna eat. They ain't got no big. Boogie, they don't want to start Boogie. Boogie can't play no 30 minutes a game.
Yep.
He'll come in, if they play Boogie, they'll play Boogie probably 15, maybe 15, 20.
I agree with everything you've said so far, and I had all the same emotions as the game was starting.
I said, man, Aiton about to eat. If he had 19 and 22 against Zubac,
agreed.
He might get 30 and 20.
He just might.
But I thought the Suns thought just by being home, playing in front of their home crowd, that the Clippers were just going to roll over and say, you know what? They're going to be done. And that didn't happen. You know a Ty Lue coach team is not going to quit, Skip. Not until the final minutes of the play, until the clock runs out. They're going to play hard. But Skip, I think the thing was with Paul, and Paul George was magnificent. There's nothing I can't say anything bad about Paul George. He was magnificent. But I thought the key to Paul George was Marcus Morris getting off to the start that he got off to. They played through him, Skip. They was posting him, and he was doing work.
On Devin Booker.
Skip, any mismatch. It didn't matter. Jay Crowder, you want something? Come get it. Bridges, you want something? Come get it. Book, you want it too? Get it. Reggie Jackson. And then Boogie gave him valuable back. So now, Skip, because remember the first 3 or 4 games, Paul George was taking 12, 14 shots in the first quarter. That's far too many. He was pressing. Now he sees these other guys got it going. He could relax. He had 11 points. I think he had like maybe 8 shots in the first half. And then he came out in the third quarter and got ultra aggressive because he's like, okay, I got some help now. Hey, these guys gonna come along with me if I need to. Hey, I don't have to force any issue. Marcus still had it going. Reggie Jackson had it going. And Reggie, the big shot after big shot in the fourth quarter, Skip. But the main reason, I just felt the Suns thought they could show up. The Clippers were going to just, you know what, hey, we had a great run. Because they have every excuse, Skip. No Zubac sprained knee. Kawhi, oh, man, you know, they ain't got Kawhi. They just go give it. Because that's what most teams would do.
And remember, Ty Lue said before the game last night, we're actually down 3 starters. Don't forget, Serge Ibaka was going to be a starter for them, and he's gone with the back injury. Gone. Okay.
Give the Clippers credit. They lived to see another day. They played extremely hard. They made some bonehead plays. But, Skip, you can't play the way the Suns played and expect to win. They need more out of Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder is down 12. He was averaging 12, I think, 12, 13 against the Nuggets. He's down to 6. Mikal, for the last couple of games, they've been no-shows. They got to do better than this. You remember Jay Crowder against L.A.? He's salsa. He's salsa. I ain't seen nothing. Now I see him moonwalking. No, bro, you got to give me more than that.
He fouls.
Yeah, he does that.
Fouler,
on 3-pointers, hit Paul George upside
right in the face.
And then he going to talk about, what? Man, you fouled a man. Give the Clippers credit, Skip. It's their day. It's their flowers. They deserve the coronation. Whatever praise people are heaping on the Clippers is deserved today.
Okay, I appreciate you saying that. So, bottom line, you would give Paul George a grade last night of
A++.
A++, says Shannon Sharpe. A Paul George, I don't know if I want to go to hater, but I think you'd qualify as a hater.
Our
right?
truth teller.
Truth teller. Well, you have been calling him Polyester P for the last couple of shows, right?
Yeah,
okay, and you gave Polyester P A++.
Yep. He got on denim today.
My turn. So, at this moment, Paul George has now played 130 more minutes than any other player in the playoff. 150 more minutes than anybody on his team, second, Reggie Jackson. Think about that. 130 more minutes than anybody who's playing in the playoffs. And I feel like I've played 130 more minutes than anybody playing in the playoffs because the Clippers have worn me out. Never in my life.
You never know.
Have I ever been so frustrated, so tormented, so baffled, found it so excruciating to root for a team as I have for this team through this playoff run. Because just when you think it's done, it ain't done. I have quit on this team multiple times through this playoff run. I quit on them last night a couple of times. I quit on Pandemic P a couple of times last night, and I'm about to explain why. But they don't quit.
They don't.
They have not been blown out one time through this whole playoff run. Usually you have a bad game where you just say, you guys can have this one. They don't do that. You realize they have now outscored the Phoenix Suns by 17 points through the 5 games.
Right.
You realize that in point differential, they're now tied with the Bucks for #1 in the playoffs.
Right.
Okay, there's something going on here that is right, even though it often feels so wrong, because you cannot get them out of your hair. You try, as Chris Paul said after Game 4 at Staples, they just don't quit. They got a lot of fight in them. So I don't know, all the cliches, whatever, and it starts with Ty Lue. I agree with you, but just when you think you can trust them, you can't trust them. And just when you want to write them off, you better not. That's my bottom line.
To Chris Paul's point, wouldn't you think you would take them more serious than what you took them last night if you know they don't quit? You just uttered the word on Saturday. They don't quit.
But they heard right before the tip that Zubats is out. And so big to big, Zubats was doing a credible job on Ayton. Just credible. He could sort of stand him off a little bit or fight with him a little bit.
He's getting rebounds. I mean, what he have? 16 rebounds one game, 14 another game?
And you would think because he was an emerging superstar, DeAndre Ayton, that you'd think last night he would dominate. They call him the dominator. He would dominate this game. Well, guess what? He dominated with a grand total of 10 points and 11 rebounds. And would you believe that the Clippers were only out-rebounded last night by 1, 41-40?
That's not a good sign.
Would you believe that the Clippers scored 58 paint points to only 32 for the Suns? That's just wrong. That game was in Phoenix, the Valley of the Suns, right?
Yep.
So now let's go back to what actually happened in the game. I have told you all year that weirdly, because I can't explain it, Marcus Morris is the veteran leader of this team, and it goes as Marcus Morris Sr. goes. I can't explain why, but if he's going to come out in the first quarter and hit 6 out of 7 shots, if he's going to hit his first 6 shots, if he's going to score 13 right out of the box, and they're going to jump up 20-5, I got a shot.
You got a shot.
Right? Because that's all I needed from Marcus really was just that. He wound up with 22, but I needed that salvo from him that set a tone and put Phoenix in a hole it never could quite dig all the way out of.
First quarter is very important because normally they fall behind in the first quarter.
Okay.
Now Clippers like, we in this thing. We in your building and we up.
Okay. Meanwhile, Paul George in the first quarter was a flat-out no-show. It's why I am not going to go A++. I'm going to give you 2 sequences of Paul George that drove me out of my mind. In fact, you can go look at my timeline. I tweeted late first quarter, get Paul George out of there, because he came out lifeless, deadheaded. It looked like he was moving in slow motion to me, like he couldn't get up to the RPM of the game. Jeff Van Gundy was all over him saying, it's like he's passing like there's no defense out there.
Right.
And the defense is getting its hands on balls like crazy. If we could see the two of the turnovers that just drove me crazy, they're about as careless as you can get.
I know exactly
and this is
what you're talking
when
about.
you had a lead, and all of a sudden you're saying, here, Phoenix, get back in the game. Here, try this. Here's Paul George. What is that? You're trying to throw it through 3 guys? You can't do that.
Skip, that's
Paul,
that LeBron
Paul, don't do that. Don't do that. There's 2 defenders right there.
Right.
It's just, it's so careless. It's so nonchalant.
Right.
It's so half speed. I'm saying there was one more where the ball got tipped up in the air and he retrieved it to save himself a turnover.
Right.
Well, he scored a grand total of 3 points in the first quarter and actually just kind of, he was the weight around their neck, yeah.
But Skip, that's my point. Because the other guys got off to such a great start, he didn't have to press.
Reggie got off to a hot start, okay?
Boogie come in, Skip.
Boogie came in, and all of a sudden, I'm looking up, and Boogie winds up with 15 points in this game?
Yes.
What the revelation that was. Okay, so now, let's fast forward to the third quarter. Here came Phoenix, and I know what Shannon Sharpe was doing up in his palatial estate. He was up, and he's had his pom-poms going,
Once we got the lead, Skip, I said, yeah, we got him now.
Chris Paul hit a jumper with 8:27 less than the third quarter, and that made them 62-61 up, and that was their first lead, and it was their last lead.
Only lead.
That's incredible. They got up by 1, and I thought, the dam has broken. This will be the end of these guys. I thought the Clippers had one last good half in them, and they finally said, we don't have Kawhi, we don't have Big Zoo, we don't even have Ibaka. We did the best we could do. Here, Phoenix, enjoy the finals.
Right.
And guess who showed up? Pandemic P suddenly turned back into playoff P because he makes an and-one play that was kind of weird if we could see what happened at this moment in the game. He goes up and under and sort of loses his balance and has an awkward stop-start. And here he goes again, and now he's off to the races. And here he goes with another shot. Now he's on fire, P. And he's got 2 free throws. By the way, he went 8 of 8 from the free throw line. You believe in that after all those free throws he missed, especially at Phoenix? So he gets those. And here he goes again. Now we're about to go to Threeville. He shoves Chris Paul down. He probably got away with a little Jordan-esque push-off, but he nails that 3, and then he comes down, and now he is feeling it. And bang. And here we go. And we're going to cap off this salvo pretty quickly here with another jumper. And would you believe, last shot, here we go. Oh, yeah, this is from the top. One last 3 just for good measure. That's unbelievable. He scored 18 points in a row. Just incredible. And they go to the fourth quarter up 91-78. And we'll get more heavily into this a little later, but there was the little altercation between CP3 and Pat Bev.
Right.
Where they just ran into each other basically off a pick.
Right.
And we'll get into the details of that play in just a couple of minutes. But to me, Pat Bev was trying to clown him. He dared to mock him for flopping in Pat Bev's view.
But it wasn't a flop.
Okay, we can get into that. But the point was, I thought Patrick Beverley sent a message to both teams. We're not afraid of you guys. In your house or anybody else's house, we're not afraid of Chris Paul. We got this. And here they came. Or so I thought. Because Paul George took his little rest at the start of the fourth quarter, and with 9:18, he comes back in the game. And I'm thinking, okay, Paul, you're on fire. Take us home. Could we see what started to happen at this point? Here we went again with Pandemic P. He reared his ugly head. Paul, don't do that. That's just careless. You can't. You're hanging on to a lead here. No, Paul. No, don't do that. That's just horrendous. I'm out of my mind. I'm rolling on my floor because there's an and one at the other end, and Cam Johnson makes the and one, and look what Paul George does. He just shoves down Torrey Craig for no apparent reason, just out of frustration. It was just pure frustration. And at that point, they have cut it to 4, and they get the ball back. And I'm thinking, I know what you were thinking. It's over, right? Here we go again.
We're going to make another push and get them this time.
And guess who? Mr. June. Here he came again. Reggie Jackson. He's unbelievably gifted as a clutch scorer. And I don't know how these are guarded shots. These are contested shots.
Well, we hit that one, the first one I think that you're going to show where it bounced and like it was going to go out and goes in. I said, we done.
Okay. Did you?
I said, we done. Skip, Skip, when something like this happens, you know you done. Skip that.
Reggie.
Come on.
Thank you. We deserve one break, one favorable roll. And Reggie says, I got this, and that is really contested and really deep, and it is pure. And then he says, watch this, Chris Paul, and he flushed. Guess what? Here they go. And they finish a 14-2 run. So it was cut to 4, and all of a sudden, by the 4:47 mark, it's pretty much done.
Well, Skip, I was feeling really good. Because you remember right before the half, 3 seconds on the clock, they passed the ball to Ayton. He handed it off the book.
That was some play.
Nails the 3. So we're down 7. I was like, okay, yeah, baby. Yeah.
I agree.
Paul George said, no. Skip, out of the Suns, that defense, what they were playing, Skip, you can't. Skip, they shot 55% from the floor. They got whatever they want, whenever they want it, however they want. You want a shot at the basket, at the rim? Get it. Come on, man. Come do the double. I don't know why they didn't bring the double quicker for Marcus Morris. Okay, you see him getting it going. Now, they're 8-0 when he shoots at least 50% from the floor. Guess what he shot last night? Guess what their record is? So, okay, bring the double. Skip, Marcus Morris is 6'8", 6'9". Why are you putting 6'5" book on him? In the post?
It messed them up when Zoo didn't start because they couldn't match up. And again, they even opened in a zone. They're just playing zone because they don't have their big man.
Right.
And it seemed to disrupt and distract Phoenix.
It did, because they didn't expect that because, normally you have the big, you play big on big. And the only time they was playing the zone, Skip, if you remember, the Clippers went to the zone when Utah was shooting the lights out the place. Yep. And it confused Utah for a little while, especially. And so I'm thinking to myself, I see Big Ayton. I said, man, Ayton gonna eat tonight. I said, they got that zone. Skip, they got it. I don't know why they would not feed Ayton. Skip, he needs more than 9 shots. He's a guy that can shoot. Skip, he's not a guy that just rolls and you just throw lob. Skip, he can post. He's a legit big man that can play with his back to the basket. Skip, you see some of those jumpers he was hitting? I'm like, ooh, that's nice. Give him a chance.
DeMarcus Cousins played 11 minutes and 19 seconds, but do you realize DeAndre Ayton, budding superstar, was mostly guarded by Marcus Morris or Nicholas Batum?
Yes.
That's who's guarding, and you can't get him loose for a bunch of alley-oop dunks? Really?
Or at least post him up, Skip. But I thought the Clippers did a great job of not conceding rebounds because it looked like the Clippers, like Ayton was going to have the rebound, and Batum or Marcus Morris would knock it loose, and one of the Clippers players would get it. They conceded nothing last night. They were hustling. They were diving on the floor. This is a well-coached team, and they're not going down without a fight. You might beat them, but you're going to know you beat a very well-coached team that gave you everything they had on a given night. So give those guys credit. But the Suns, if you think you can just show up, roll the ball out, and the Clippers are just going to go away because they're playing without Kawhi, they're playing without Serge Ibaka, they're playing without Zubac, you're sadly mistaken. Now, I don't know if you know this, Skip. You best rather let this team win. In a Game 7, all bets off. All bets off in a Game 7. And you can say, home court, we got it. Because they're going to start to feel it. Now, they feel confident because they say, hold on, really, this series really should be over. We should have won this series.
That's correct.
This should be over. It should have been 4-1 us.
I agree. Yeah.
So don't think because you're up 3-2, they're less confident than if they were up 3-2 because they're not. Chris Paul, you need to get your guys right.
He needs to get himself right too. He played okay last night, but he wasn't superstar. No. He wasn't able to take over the fourth quarter.
He missed some threes that CP normally hits.
Well, did he make any threes?
No, he was 0 for.
He was 0 for 3, right? 0 for 6 from
Jay
3.
Crowder 0 for 4.
So, in the end, big picture, would you believe the Los Angeles Clippers have now won the most games in one playoff run when trailing in series? The most. They've won 7 times when they're trailing in series. No one's ever won 7 in a postseason run.
Right.
That's extraordinary.
Right.
That's Ty Lue. It's Paul George. It's Reggie Jackson. It's this whole mindset of defensive rebounding. Like you said, do they not scratch and claw for defensive rebounds and loose balls?
A lot of these guys, Skip, with the exception, Paul George went. He wanted it out of Indy. He wanted it out of OKC. But for the most part, Skip, all these guys are cast off. Detroit bought Reggie Jackson out. Marcus Morris, the Knicks said, Knicks said you can have him.
They did.
Luke Kennard, they said, we don't care about no Luke Kennard.
We don't care.
Those guys are
DeMarcus Cousins has been all over the map.
All over. He's played just about every team in California. The Kings, the Lakers, now he's on the Clippers. There ain't a California team he hadn't played for.
Listen, Nicholas Batum is very valuable to his team. And Charlotte just
bought him out.
Nope. We're done.
So now, Skip, this is their opportunity to show all those teams, all those execs that bought us out and says we can't be a part of a championship-winning team. This is their opportunity to say, yes, we can. See what we're doing? Man, Skip, I don't think Ty Lue gets enough credit because I think the thing when he was with the Cavs, you got LeBron. How much credit are you going to get if you coach LeBron? How much credit does Phil Jackson get for coaching Jordan and having Kobe? Because normally when you have great players, yeah, he's a good guy, but he did have Magic. He did have Larry. He did have... But you're seeing now he doesn't have a LeBron. And his best player, Kawhi, is out. And look what they're doing.
You sound a little nervous to me.
I'm not as confident. I'm not as confident as I woke up yesterday morning. I'm not the same guy today as I was yesterday.
Well, I'd say, because you were O-V-E-R over.
Over. It was over. Man, Chris, they let me down. Skip, they let me down. They let me down. Now they're gonna have to do right by me.
Well, the Clippers are not gonna let you up, is what the deal is. They've got you down, they're not gonna let you up.
Oh, so you taking the Clippers in Game 6?
Absolutely, but we'll talk about that in just a moment here.
Yeah, we're not done talking about this game. We're not done. Ty Lue making your day very long, Shannon. He said it was very doable, this comeback. I don't know why we didn't listen to him. No mercy. Paul George had an efficient night in the Clippers' Game 5 win. PG-13 racked up 41 points on 15 of 20 shooting from the floor that included 3 of 6 from deep and a perfect 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Teammate DeMarcus Cousins defended PG-13 after the game, saying he's taken a bad rap. Take a listen.
I don't know where this trolling has come from, where the internet controls the narrative about these players. It's becoming foolish, man. Like I said earlier in the year, that's one of the most special players to ever lace his shoes up. Get this dude his flowers, man. I don't understand the slander.
Well, there you go. Shannon, how much truth is there to that?
Ain't no truth. I can help clear it up for you. The internet didn't start this narrative. Now, Skip, I'm good now. My normal researcher, my guy that helps do my part of the show, Steve, he's on vacation.
Oh, so yeah, that's why you've been so bad.
He and his lovely wife just have twins. And he's spending time with those guys.
Congrats,
Olivia and Zoe.
You're excused.
Yeah, Uncle Shay miss you.
We gotta give him some love. Congrats.
So I got me a new one.
Okay.
Ash, my gal. So I said, Ash, I need you to do me a favor. Skip, I called her Sunday. She at Disney. I think she said she was at Disney. But anyway, I said, I need you to do me a favor. I said, I want you to go back as far as you can and find the first time someone referred to a teammate, a player, or someone else referred to Paul George as Playoff P. She went all the way back. She said, I'm in 2011. I went from 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I never heard one person refer to Paul George as Playoff P.
Until
2018. He referred to himself as Playoff P.
He did. Okay.
So when you give yourself a name like that, you better perform come win, Skip, not the regular season.
That is some third-level research.
Yes, because I needed to know. Whoa. I said, well, maybe I missed something. Yeah. And the name PG-13, Bill Simmons gave him that name. He recommended that he change his number. Say PG-13 is better than PG because he was 24 at first. Put in a request, and then he'd have to buy out the jersey. But that's neither here nor there. So that's what I'm saying, Skip. So when you give yourself a name, Skip, Magic, somebody gave him that name because of what he could do with the basketball. It's like he
By the way, greatest nickname ever. Ever.
Yeah, Larry Legend.
Okay.
He didn't say, hey, I'm Larry Legend. No. He didn't give himself that name. Mike didn't give himself
but both could live up to those nicknames. Yes.
Skip, let me tell you what Playoff P. Before now. In 2013, before he became Paul George, there was no expectations, he gave the Heat, the big three Heat, all they could handle. Yep. But in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7, 7 points on 2 of 9 shooting. 2017, round 1 against Miami, they got swept. In Game 4, he had 15 points on 5 of 21 shooting. In 2018, round 1 against Utah, Game 6, 5 points on 2 of 16 shooting. Last year, the 2020 Western Conference semifinals against Denver, 10 points on 4 of 16. Boogie, what you mean you don't understand the narrative? The narrative is that your guy in meaningful playoff games has come up short.
Yep.
That's what it is. There ain't no internet created no narrative. Just like he created that name, he got to do something about this. Now, it's easy to do this when you get your Marcus Morris goes for 20 in the first half, and Reggie Jack goes for 14, and Boogie goes for 10. So now Paul George like, okay, I can relax. The pressure's not on me. But I need the pressure because, see, here's the thing, Skip, about a game 5. You're 5.5-point underdogs. Everybody expects you to lose anyway, so I can throw caution to the wind. Now that you got the game going back into your building, now I want to see what you're going to do in Game 6. And if you can force a Game 7, let me see what you're going to do in a Game 7. So don't start this notion that all of a sudden people just started attacking Paul George, because they didn't. Paul George brought this on himself with his play in meaningful ball games. I'm not talking about the regular season, because he didn't say it my name. Man, I'm regular season P. What I do in the regular season, I be cooking folks in the regular season. He said playoff P. And prior to last night, give me a Paul George signature playoff game. Prior to last night, for every one that you give me, I give you 4 where he come up small. That's how it happened. That's how it always happened. There's a reason things transpire. You created this. Okay, now draw a new picture. Okay, Paul, you got a great start. You starting on a new canvas. Okay, let's see if you can finish it.
Okay, so bottom line to this debate is that I think we agree Paul George has become one of the all-time lightning rods for both positivity and negativity, right?
Yes. But I love that his teammates taking up for him, though.
Okay, I do too. But for me, because I'm rooting for the Clippers, he has become one of the most conflicting, confounding players I've ever tried to root for, because from quarter to quarter, I don't know what I'm going to get from him. I'll get some pandemic, and then I'll get some playoff. I believe in playoff P. I've told you all year, I thought he grew up and toughened up after what happened in the bubble. And to DeMarcus's point about, I don't know where this came from. Well, it just came from the bubble. He melted down, and he admitted it publicly. He said, I crumbled psychologically. I needed help in the bubble. And it was in part because they were stuck in the bubble, and he got what they call cabin fever, where you get stuck in your room in your hotel and you just can't take it anymore. And it started to affect his performance on the court with no fans. So the point is that that's where it all came from. And yet the irony of this is, I thought so many people out there in viewerland want our athletes today to show vulnerability. If you have psychological issues or weakness, you should go seek counseling. Well, he admitted, I needed a counselor in the bubble. And he got annihilated for it. He got ridiculed for needing counseling in the bubble.
What he got ridiculed for, Skip, is that he used that as an excuse. Because when he played good, he didn't need no counsel. It was only when he started to play bad. So what was that in 2013? When he melted down? What was that in 2017, 2018? What was that?
I believe he did first acknowledge this publicly. I think it was on TNT right after a good game that he had like a bounce-back game against Dallas. And he said, hey, and he went into the background of the first 5 games of this series or whatever it was. I just crumbled.
I don't, Skip, I don't, listen. People deal with things. There are things going on in people's life we may not know a lot about, that they're secretly battling demons. Okay, I got that. But, Skip, you can't say when things are going bad, I'm battling this, and when things are going good, you're on top of the world. He's like Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic. He's on top of the world when things are going good. When things go bad, no, that's all I'm saying. You got issues, deal with them. I empathize with you. But don't do this. Don't do this, Boogie, to pretend like you don't know.
I hope this ends better than it did for Leo, for Paul, right?
It's just with him and Kate Winslet. You remember the scene, Skip?
Do I? Yeah.
So, but all that being said, Skip, all this is predicated on what? When Marcus Morris goes 50% from the floor, they're 8-0 in the playoffs. Okay,
so here's my takeaway. The first line that DeMarcus uttered about he's one of the most special ever to lace him up. I agree with that, because I think even you agree deep down. I'm talking about 6'8", and long, and can play defense just the way he can play offense. He's led this league in steals before. He's been all defense 4 times. In 2019, at Oklahoma City, led the league in steals and finished 3rd in the MVP. He is supremely talented. He's not a good free throw shooter for the most part until it's time to make them. But he made all 8 last night. He's a great free throw shooter. Okay. So we see that he's got deep range. He's got the whole package. he's got, dare I say, he's got a lot of what LeBron has. I'm not saying he's LeBron, but he's in the ballpark with LeBron. He's a very, he can't pass the ball like LeBron can, but he's a pretty good passer when he gets going.
He can shoot the three. He got mid-range. He can get to the basket.
Hey.
I mean, and all of this, Skip, he's become this after that gruesome injury that he suffered in Vegas during the All-Star thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, Olympic.
Yes. And then before he joined the Clippers, after Kawhi recruited him out of Oklahoma City, he needed 2 shoulder surgeries. So he came into last season, not this past one, but the year before, the first year with the Clippers, off double shoulder surgery. So he's had a lot going on with his body. And he says right now he's feeling the best he's felt in a long time. Okay, so we've seen 7 All-Star teams that he's made. I said 4 All-Defense, 3rd in MVP. So I think we could acknowledge he's a really good player. Yeah, I mean, he's a star. I can't go superstar.
But that's why you're conflicted, because you just read off his resume and then you watch games like he have, and you say, what the hell is this, PG? That's what's conflicting. That's what starts the narrative. When you see a guy that's so supremely talented, and you watch what he did last night. Skip, the guy missed 5 shots in 40 minutes. He missed 5 shots in 40 minutes.
And I told you I couldn't give him an A. I gave him a B for last night because he had 6 horrendous turnovers, where he had stretches of turnover play where you said, what happened to you? Have you hit the wall psychologically and physically?
But he let him in assist, Skip, and he gave you 13.
But again, he's the kind you walk away and look at the box score and you say, wow, look at that. But we could have done that off game 4. Where you looked at the box score and you said, but no, you know what happened in the 4th quarter. 1 of 7 happened in the 4th quarter.
But I think the thing is, plus, a lot of that 1 of 7, Skip, some of those turnovers that you talk about in game 4, they happened in the 4th quarter. Thankfully for the Clippers, none of these really costly turnovers happened late in the ball game.
Not late, but he had a salvo. He had 3 in the 4th quarter.
Yeah. Or the game wasn't close enough that, you know, the 1-score game. Now, all of a sudden, a turnover, now you let it be a tie ball game.
So think about this. Since Paul George entered the league, if we look at playoff statistics, there are only 3 players who have this caliber of numbers. He's 21, 8, and 4 in playoff games since he entered the league. Only LeBron and KD have better lines than that, okay? So just remember, that doesn't grow on Southern California palm tree. He's from Palmdale, right up the road from L.A. It's just hard to find those kind of numbers. But does he have issues? Does he have flaws? Yeah. And he's hard to trust. He's hard to trust from start to finish of games. But would you want to have him on your team? I would.
Yeah, but Skip, he created the narrative. Just like he created that name, he created the narrative that come playoff time in meaningful playoff games, he has come up small. That's the narrative. Skip, they gave Magic Johnson that. Magic was a 2-time Finals MVP. But he did something in '84. He dribbled out the clock when they had the game won. He
did.
And they called him tragic.
They did.
Now, you talk about Magic Johnson, who had won the Finals MVP twice. And they labeled him that. Even after that. So what do you think Paul George is going to get, who's won nothing?
And Magic came right back the next year and wiped the slate clean. Nobody thought of tragic anymore.
Thank you. And that's what Paul George. See, you think that just by he won some games, y'all got to start. No. It took Magic to come back and win the championship in '85 for you. So that made it 3. Let's think about that. The guy was a 2-time Finals MVP, and people are like, hold up, 1 mistake.
Okay. When I hark back to game 2 at Phoenix, it was classic playoff/pandemic P, because remember, he has a burst of points, just an explosion of points from the 240 mark down to the 22nd mark. He scored 9 points. And I'm like, I got this. Then he goes to the line to put them up 3. And it would have forced them on the last possession to shoot a 3 instead of the inbound lob to Ayton. And you know what happened? Clank and clank happened. Okay, so it's hard to embrace that, because you're like, oh, he's great, he's great, he's great. No, he's not. He's pandemic P. Look, there he did it again. And then game 4 at home, he goes 1 of 7 in the 4th quarter and 0 of 2 from 3. And 5 of 9 on free throws. And it's hard to wrap your arm back around it, right? So you're saying, well, I can't trust him. And then if I can quickly hark back to that game you talked about in 2018, the closeout game at Utah. This is his worst game ever. He was 2 of 16 and 0 of 6 from 3. But remember, that's a game where Russ has taken 43 shots. it's just hard to even find shots because Russ trusts nobody but Russ.
Right.
And he's not going to create shots for you. You got to sort of find your own
And that
shots.
was 2 weeks before. That was when Paul George called himself playoff P.
That was right there. Yep.
Skip, it was so... Carmelo Anthony's on stage with him like, I ain't know they called him that.
Laughed.
He laughed. Thank you. So,
by the way, Carmelo in that game scored 7 points with 3 rebounds. So he wasn't any better. He was a minus 19.
Yes.
Okay.
So you talk about somebody that's around the NBA that knows the nicknames and knows how to dress. Everybody around, they call him Book. Devin Book, that's Book. Or so hearing somebody that's around you is like, oh, that's what they call it? That's my first time hearing it.
Okay.
You give yourself a name playoff. Okay, I'm gonna see it in the playoffs.
Okay, so my bottom line is I'm still happy he's on my team tomorrow night.
Okay.
That's all I got to say.
I'm going to see if you feel that same way when you come in here Thursday morning.
Okay, let's see.
I hope we can carry the momentum, the energy, the confidence, and the Clippers will need another huge game out of Paul George tomorrow night. Game 6, the Suns need just one win to eliminate LA and head to the finals. But Phoenix head coach Monty Williams says the Suns need to play with, quote, desperation tomorrow night. He was pretty upset in his post-game comments yesterday after listening to him. So, Shannon, who wins Game 6?
I'm going to go with the Suns because the pressure is now back on the Clippers. Because, Skip, like I said before, Game 5, you're 5.5-point underdogs, and you're without your best player in Kawhi. So if you lose the ball game, what? You're expected to lose. You without Kawhi. You got every excuse in the book. But what'd you do? You won. You brought it back to L.A. Now the pressure is on you because you brought it back to L.A. Let's see if you can you force a Game 7 and go back to Phoenix on Friday. I think Game 7 will be Friday.
It'll be Friday.
So, do I believe Marcus Morris can get off to that kind of start again? Probably not. Reggie Jackson can play. Reggie Jackson is showing that, I'm not going to play for a minimum contract next year. Somebody's going to throw a boatload of money at him. And rightfully so.
Yep.
He's earned that.
He has.
Boogie. Is Boogie going to give you the type of performance, Skip? 15 points in 11 minutes? I mean, he's shown flashes, but I hadn't seen this Boogie Cousins in a very, very long time. So do I believe the Clippers are capable of getting off to the start in Game 6 like they got off in Game 5? I do not. See, the thing is with the Clippers, if you let them get out early, they get a chance to relax. You need to put them to the test. You need to make them feel the pressure from the opening tip to the end of the ball game. And then you'll see. Because they let them get real comfortable, Skip. They let them get into the ivory tower. They had mink slippers. They had nice Versace robe like the one you got. You probably had it on last night.
I did not have it on.
You need to put it on.
That would have done me in.
You need to put it on tomorrow night.
Yep.
So that's what I'm going to hold my hat on that. Monty Williams is upset, and rightfully so. Guys, what were we doing? We let them get whatever they want. We let them get to the rim when they want. We let them get the 3. We told you got to chase them off the 3.
He was mostly talking about a 20-5 hole that they dug for themselves.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But, Monty, don't be afraid to call timeout, too, now. That thing get 8-2, get 12-2, 13-2. Use your timeout. It's okay, bro. You got 7 of them. What you saving them from? I understand that you might want to use one for a challenge, but you want to stem the tide. Get over here. Let's talk about it. You see Ty Lue, Skip? You get out the 8-2 run on him. He pointed that fish. Give me that. I'm going to take the Suns to close this thing out.
Okay. You are speaking with your heart and not your head. Your head is telling you be careful. Correct?
3 cases to do.
Your head is telling you this is going to go 7
cases.
Okay.
No points.
No points. Well, I'm glad no points because the Clippers are actually favored tomorrow night by 1 point. You get no points. You just said no points, so you get no points. Thank you very much for that. I completely disagree with your premise. The pressure is still all on Chris Paul and the Suns. Twice in his career before, he has blown 3-1 leads. He knows how it feels, and he knows what happens, especially in Game 6, where you feel it all slipping away. They think they have to come and close the deal because they don't want to have to deal with a Game 7 at home against this team.
No, because anything can happen.
The pressure's still all on the Suns because the only time the Clippers felt pressure in the series was in Game 4 because that was the game where you can make it a conventional series where you tie it up at 2 and then you see what happens and see if you can kind of seize control in Game 5. You do it the the conventional, the routine way, right? This team can't do anything routinely. This team is only at its best when it's at its worst. It has to do it the hardest way. So what has happened? No team has ever come back from 0-2 down in 2 consecutive playoff series. They did that. Well, now on top of that,
they're 0-2 in the third series.
Yeah, and here they go again, now down 3-1. Well, it's exactly who they are. It has revealed them. It's pushed them back with backs to wall to expose their character, which is, it's deep.
Right.
This team has a backbone to it, but the pressure is still on Chris Paul and company to come in and finish these guys off.
Paul George gave you 41, 13, and 6. If he don't follow that, replicate that performance with another outstanding performance and they lose, what was that for? So what has it changed? Remember, it's all about, Skip, playoff P. You can't have one good game and then erase what transpired. You know, remember, Magic had to win a title.
Yep.
Okay, he got to get him out of this series.
Okay, do I think he can go for 41? I don't. Do I think they need 41? I do not. They have so much firepower already where I think Marcus Morris is getting healthier. Remember, he had some kind of a knee issue, and he's looking like Marcus Morris Sr. again. And I trust him in this game to set the tone. I trust Patrick Beverley just to wreak havoc because pressure doesn't get to you on defense. All you do on defense is just play hard.
Right.
It's not a choke game, right, on defense.
Right.
It's not hard to play hard. You just play with your heart and sometimes with your head. But has he not been doing a number both on Book and on CP3?
And Cameron Payne.
And Cameron Payne. Wherever they put him, he disrupts, he distracts, and ultimately he destroys. And I think it's been like a godsend, like a revelation. He's come out of mothballs. He wasn't playing very much through the year. He had lost his spot in this rotation.
They might have been low managing him.
Maybe they were. I don't know. And you know and I know Terrence Mann didn't put up big numbers last night, but he is capable of a big 20-point game, right?
Yes.
Is he afraid? No, he's not afraid. And Luke Kennard gave them nothing last night, and I promise you, at home, Luke Kennard is capable of giving you 20.
Yeah.
Because he can rain threes. If he gets in a rhythm, you better look out.
Yeah, he had one. He had a couple that in and out from the three-point line.
He sure
but I think the thing is, Skip, is that Paul limit Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris early. Paul George, you let Paul George do his thing because what you're trying to do is get those other guys out of rhythm. You see things that Skip, they got in the rhythm. Paul George is the best player, but the other guys were able to get a rhythm and stay there. So get those guys off key early. Let Paul get his 13, 14 shots up.
Okay.
Make him tough, obviously.
Yep.
You don't want to give him layups. You don't want to finally put him on the free throw line. But I'm just saying, get Marcus Morris, get Reggie Jackson off out of rhythm. But you got to come out in the first quarter. You see what the Clippers did to you. They jumped on you in the first quarter. You got to do the same thing.
And remember, the next revelation has been DeMarcus Cousins. You want to talk about talented? I pushed in that John Wall DeMarcus Cousins draft.
Yeah.
I said he should be the first pick in the draft, and I still believe in that.
Yeah.
Well, he's not too old to do what he's doing now.
It just ends so many injuries.
I know.
Just robbed
I
him
got
of,
it. But,
Skip, but you know, Skip, that was a serious question. Who would you rather have, AD or Boogie?
Sure was. When they were playing together? Yeah.
When he was in Sacramento, Skip, Boogie was giving you 55-24, give you 40-25. He was like that.
Did you see Boogie steal the ball from Chris Paul and go score it on the other end?
I saw that.
Okay, was that not a message sent again? That's what he's capable of doing.
Yes.
Well, if you start playing him 12, 13, 15 minutes against Ayton, I love this.
Right.
Again, would I rather have Kawhi? Would I rather have Zoo? Would I rather have Serge Ibaka? Sure, I would. Yeah. But I like the unity of this team. And I love what Paul George said right after the game. And you could call this cliches, but he said the important thing is we are doing this together. And if you want to interpret that as a little bit of shot at Kawhi, feel free, because Kawhi's not a together guy. He's a solo guy. Right. He's not a bad guy. He just keeps to himself.
He ain't trying to bring anybody up. Kawhi's like, follow me. I'm going to do my thing.
I'm going to do my thing. It's not that he causes problems. He causes no problem. Because he doesn't talk to anybody. But this team is having fun doing this together.
Skip, here's the elephant in the room. I'm not saying the Suns are better without Chris Paul, but Chris Paul slows the pace down. You look at him when he's on the court, they have a 97 offensive rating.
Yep.
When he's off the court, they're 112. Chris Paul's got to push the pace. And he likes to be like LeBron. He likes to control the tempo, walk the ball up the court. You letting him set up.
He likes to be methodical.
Yes. Yeah, he's 19 of 60 in his 3 games back. The Suns have lost 2 or 3.
Yep. He likes to play slow chess and get to his spot and get his jump shot.
You got them young lions. You got to let them run.
Okay.
You got to give them example.
Okay,
let them go.
I agree with that premise. Also, I've never been the biggest Chris Paul fan because it's hard I don't even know if he's 6 feet tall.
Right.
But it's hard to dominate and control a game when you're that small. Because in the end, he is that small.
Right.
And it's not like he's a leaper or like he's not Allen Iverson at 6 feet tall, right?
No.
Okay, so it's hard. People expect a lot of him, in part because of all the State Farm commercials. They're great, but you get an elevated view of Chris Paul from the commercials and the fact that he's been the head of the Players Union for what, like 10 years?
Yeah, he's been there for a minute.
So he gets superstar status, but I don't know if he gives you superstar impact.
Right.
Yet people are calling him the MVP this year, and he did wonders for this young team, showing it how to win. He's been wonders as a mentor to Ayton, but he, in the end, has to step up and stand taller than he stood last night.
19 of 60.
Okay.
That's what he shot in 3 games.
Okay.
19 of 60.
Okay.
And they've lost 2 or 3.
Okay.
He's got to push the pace.
Okay, so think about what the Clippers are thinking right now. They should have won Game 2. They had them dead to rights. And we got to show it one last time. The ball just goes off Ayton's fingertips. It's just clear. This is the shot that Bridges takes from the corner. And the Clippers are up. And
no, that ball went off Ayton.
What's that?
It wasn't off Ayton.
Yes, it was. It's off Ayton. Here, watch. We got to see this one last time. This is a win for the Clippers. This is off Ayton. Look, it's just clearly off Ayton. He's 7 feet tall. And he's trying to fake it like, you know, went off. No, it's off Ayton. It's off his fingertips. They even went and looked at it. Look who makes the call. Scott Foster, who's standing on the opposite end of the baseline, and watch Reggie Jackson have to walk right. He walks right by him as he's trying to make the call, and he can't even see it. Okay, that ends the game. If you call that play right, the Clippers win the game because it's 0.9 seconds left, and you don't have the lob done.
I think the referee at the bottom wanted to call a jump ball because he's pointing at both of them. I think he wanted to call a jump ball down here at the bottom.
All right, well, I would have taken a jump ball because with 9.9, it's over that way.
Yeah.
So the point is, the Clippers are saying we have outscored them by 17 points. The Clippers are saying we should be ahead 3 games to 2 because we've outplayed them fairly routinely. They haven't been blown out. The games that they lost were close. So you don't think the Clippers are going into tomorrow night with confidence? I just think even without Kawhi, the Clippers are slightly better than Chris Paul and company.
I'm not so sure if I'm Monty Williams, I might start Cameron Johnson.
Well,
because if I'm not getting any more production out of Crowder and Bridges, then
you mean playing with Chris Paul?
Yes. Put him in the starting lineup because Skip, he's the only one that can make shots from outside.
Okay, and he's going to guard whom?
The same people that Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder's guarding. Nobody. But at least he gives you something on the offensive end.
Okay. I got the Clippers. I feel good about the Clippers. This is going to go 7. I'm not sure about Game 7 because that's a steep mountain to climb to do it 3 in a row, to come back from 3-1 and win 2 of them at Phoenix. But the other strange part of this is the Clippers are actually a little better on the road than they are at home.
We've got this.
Okay, you got this? Okay, so how many cases? You want to do 3 here? Okay, 3. I'm good. No points for 3 cases. Thank you very much.
That was easier than yesterday. Okay, so that's it. We're good to go.
You feeling good. I see you over there. You feeling good over there. You over there celebrating. You talking to Ernestine last night.
I got a playoff P on my side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, watch you come in here on Thursday.
No
mercy. Chris Paul came down hard while shooting a 3-pointer as Patrick Beverley fought through a screen, then undercut CP3's legs. The play was reviewed, and Pat Bev was given a flagrant 1 for the play. Bev wasn't as convinced since he mocked Paul for flopping right after the play happened. So, Shannon, was this a foul, a flagrant foul, or just a flop?
Skip, I get that CP3 was trying to draw a foul. He was trying to jump into Pat Bev's body, and Pat Bev undercut him. He really could have hurt Chris Paul because Chris Paul could have hit his head on the floor. And then you get up and mock him.
He hit his butt pretty hard.
Yeah. But Skip, but you get up and mock him like, oh, bro, you ain't doing. I didn't even foul you. I don't get Pat Bev. I really don't. Skip, in a situation like this, you think that's funny. He think it's funny. I mean, look how hard Chris Paul hit the floor.
Did he?
Chris Paul didn't flop.
It's not called the hardwood for nothing,
yes.
right?
And then he's doing that. Skip, I really don't. This is really what irks me about him, Skip, because he does something dumb, and then he mocks the player because of his foolishness and his dumbness. Now he talk about somebody flopping. Who's a bigger flopper than Pat Bev? Jim, cue that tape. Cause Pat Bev's like Chris Paul. Look at this. Really? Really?
Well, he got hit in the face.
No, that man. Look at this, Skip.
He hit him right in the face.
Skip, look at this. Skip, for real, Skip. For real, Skip. You feel comfortable with that? Well, how about this, y'all?
That was a push off. By
look at this, Skip.
Oh, got elbowed right in the chest.
Man, it's...
Well, that's a foul. It's an offensive foul. I think you picked 3 bad examples.
I got one for you. Since they instituted the flop rule, only 2 players have been fined for flopping in the last 4 seasons. I give you one guess who one of the players are. I give you one guess. Anybody. Who's one of the 2 players? Patrick Beverley and Marcus Smart. In the last 4 seasons, 2 players.
2 of the toughest defenders there are in this league.
So why is he, if he's one of the 2 players, since the rule has been instituted in the last 4 seasons for flopping, why is he complaining about flopping when he's one of the biggest floppers? But Skip, I don't think in a situation like this, I get it sometimes, guys flop. But in a situation where a guy could have been injured, I don't think that's the time. There's a time and a place. You've heard the saying. There's a time and a place for everything. I don't believe this was the time or the place for Pat Bev to try to be cute and funny and mock a player that he could have injured. That's my only thing, Skip. But it was a foul, and rightfully so.
So you can look at my timeline. I immediately tweeted, I don't even think that was a foul because it was definitely a flop. But the more I look at it right now, I wouldn't even call it a foul on it.
Really?
Who is the greatest at fighting over picks I have ever seen in the history of this league? Michael Jordan. He fought over picks with physicality. He punished the picker. He would fight across his body and through because he didn't give up. He didn't say, I'm going to back off, and like too many times the Clippers just walk around the screen. It doesn't work. You have to fight over the top of the screen.
How many times did Michael Jordan fighting over the screen, the guy that was shooting the shot, hit his backside on the floor?
Okay, that's Chris Paul's fault because he did flop. He jumped forward. I don't think Pat Bev, if you look at this one more time.
He clipped his legs.
Patrick Beverley's just moving straight sideways. He's just trying to beat him to the spot. He's not trying to foul him. He's just trying to get through the pick. That's all. Chris leaps forward with his legs and kicks out.
No, Skip, he was trying to jump into it.
Okay, well, he's drawing the contact.
Yes.
The contact is initiated by one CP3.
You can do that, Skip.
And he loses his balance and falls backwards, and nearly, if he didn't hurt himself, I think he's sore when he gets up this morning.
The NBA is trying to do something about these non-basketball moves, Skip. And I believe this would have been something we're going to probably have a discussion about next year. But
with Chris.
Yeah, they're going to do it. No, we're all players. Yeah,
but that was a non-basketball.
Trae Young, James Harden.
Okay, well, that was a non-basketball play because if he just dribbles to his left, they're going to hit into each other, but not hard enough to call it a foul.
You know, you guys coming over, he's fighting over the screen. So now I know you're fighting over the screen. I'm going to try to draw the foul. So in the process, yes, but what Pat Bev does, he beats the screen, but I don't believe he meant to do it. I'm not saying Patrick Beverley meant to do this, but he gets past, and in the process of Chris Paul trying to jump into him, Pat Beverley's already past him, and he takes his legs out from under him. That's all I'm saying. Did Pat Beverley?
I think Chris takes his own legs out from under him.
I don't know. Maybe this TV was like the ones I got in my house, because I'm not seeing the same thing you see.
Yeah,
you don't see Pat Bev clip this man.
No, he kicks his legs forward, Chris does, and loses his balance. That was a flagrant flop. That's what it should have been called, a flagrant foul on the flop.
Skip, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
No, I'm not. I could just see it. Again, Patrick's a shrewd operator, but he's just playing defense as hard as he can play it.
They called a foul on Book. You remember when Patrick Beverley, they reviewed it? They called a flagrant foul when Book hit the man in the shoulder. And Pat Bev grabbed his mouth. Come on, Skip, you talking about flopping.
Okay, he is the shrewdest operator.
Flopper.
Okay, he'll flop occasionally, but that's a blatant flop by Chris Paul.
That wasn't no flop, Skip. The man clipped the leg, man.
And I do not blame Patrick Beverley at all for jumping right up at Phoenix in their house and mocking the flop.
You know what he did? You know what you noticed? Where were they at, Skip? They were ahead. He didn't do none of that Saturday. He didn't do none of that. Why he didn't do that Saturday, Skip?
Because he was sending a message to both teams. We got this.
Because we front running.
We got this.
If you notice, Pat Bev does all this keying, all this mockery when they're in the lead. He does none of this when they're behind. So in other words, he's showing there's a method to his madness. No, he front run. That's what he does.
Well, he establishes the front to run with because he is setting a defensive tone in this series that is off the charts.
I'm not here to argue or debate that. He's been sensational. But don't pretend but when Luka was giving him that business, he ain't doing none of that. So why when Luka was doing this or saying he too small, why did he do that? Why did he say this? Why did he do that to Luka?
Okay, well, you got 6'1" versus 6'8". I don't know.
Because, see, if he thinks he has the upper hand, just like Dame, when Dame was on the whistle the free throws, he keying. But when Dame was sending them home, he wasn't keying when he was in Houston. Remember he was in Houston?
He was.
He was on that Houston team.
He was.
When Dame hit that shot. I ain't hear him do that. I ain't see him do that then. Front runners, Skip. I don't like them front runners. Nah, these be true.
Pat Bev versus CP3 is a fair fight because they're about the same size. I think Pat's maybe 6'1" and Chris is maybe 6 feet. So at least we have a level playing field.
And you saw Pat Bev was like, man, I ain't mean to do that. Chris Paul was like, basically get out of my face.
He went back to him just to agitate him some more.
No, he didn't.
He's trying to play nice, and Chris knew.
Yeah, exactly. Chris Paul said, nah, I ain't enough for your bull jive, man. I know you full of caca.
That is correct. He is, and it still gets to Chris.
That's all. No, they don't get to Chris. That's all right. Cliff gonna show up. Watch Cliff show up on.
Well, I think Cliff has been showing up every game.
No.
I think that hasn't been Cliff. Chris, that's been Cliff.
Yeah, man.
The last 2 games, Chris Paul from 3 is now 0 for 9 in the last 2 games.
Yeah,
or maybe that's Cliff Paul. Man, I don't know.
He do a breakout game, Skip. He can't play because really, if you think about it, Chris Paul really hadn't played well in this series.
In fact,
he missed the first 2 games.
He's been just like that State Farm commercial where he just disappears, turns into a basketball.
If he do for a game. Yeah. He and Book need to put one of these games together. Okay. But they better give get DA the ball tomorrow night.
Boy, you got a lot of ifs and buts.
Nah, they need to get that ball. They need to get the ball to DA. 9 touches is not enough.
They need to do this and they need to do that.
They're going to do it.
And they ain't doing any of it.
Okay. Now you front running. Now you front running.
Nope. I'm just believing.
Okay.
That one team's a little better than the other, and a big reason for that is Patrick Beverley.
I promise you won't be the same man Thursday you are today. You're going to be a different guy, Skip.
We'll see about that, won't we? You've been saying that now for how long? The Clippers been playing for like 2 months, it feels like. I'm worn out from it.
It does.
But every time you think they're done, they ain't done. You're done.
Okay. No, I'm not done.
Yeah.
I'm not done.
Well, you said yesterday it was over.
I got all the faith in the world in mine in his butt.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said the show is going to be hard for you, Shannon, though. You doing okay still?
I'm all right.
Okay.
I'm going to do a lot better on Thursday show.
Right.
I promise you.
No mercy. July 13th, Judge Tatis Ohtani and baseball's finest face off in a mile-high midsummer slugfest from Coors Field in Denver. It's the 2021 MLB All-Star Game presented by MasterCard July 13th on Fox. And the Clippers have begun yet another comeback attempt this postseason. Paul George led the way last night for L.A. with a game-high 41 points to grab the 116-102 win in Phoenix. Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson combined for 45 points as the Clippers were able to lead for a majority of the game and force a Game 6 tomorrow night in L.A. Fox Sports NBA analyst Chris Broussard is joining us now. Chris, what's the biggest reason the Clippers won this one?
I think the biggest reason was playoff P, Paul George, and obviously had a historic performance. He led the Clippers in everything, 41 points, rebounds, he had 13, assists, he had 6, even steals, he had 3. It was a fantastic performance. He was the first player in the 74-year history of the NBA to put up those numbers and shoot 75% from the floor. So he put on a huge performance. And what I like most about it was that going into the game with everybody criticizing him, including me, for missing the free throws at the end of Game 4, even going back to Game 2, and everyone saying he had to have a big performance, he just went out there and let the game come to him. Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson were on the broadcast saying that he had to be more aggressive. He needed to do more. And yet he still continued to just play his game. And what that did was, one, it led to him being efficient because he only took good shots for the most part. But two, it gave his teammates the room to do their thing. So Marcus Morris can go out and score 20 points in the first half. If Paul George is forcing the action and trying to be the star and carry them by himself, Marcus Morris doesn't do that. Boogie Cousins gets 10 points in the first half. And then in the fourth quarter, of course, Reggie Jackson scores 8 points in a 2-minute stretch to kind of put the game away. And Paul George was just the steady guy throughout from the second quarter on. 8 points in the second, 20 points in the third, 10 points in the fourth. So he had a tremendous performance, nice bounce back. And I said yesterday that foul shooting was a big part of this series because the teams are so evenly matched. The Clippers go out and make 14 of 15 free throws, led by Paul George by hitting all 8 of his free throws. So, Pandemic P, look, I gave him the lion's share of the blame in Game 4. Now I got to call him Playoff P and give him the lion's share of the blame of the credit in Game 5.
Well, Chris, I thought Paul George was able to relax because Marcus Morris and those other guys got up to that great start. So as you mentioned, and I was telling Skip in the opening segment, is that he didn't have to force anything. Normally, he's trying to get up 10, 12 shots in the first quarter, and they're not necessarily all good shots. Every shot that he really took yesterday was a premium quality shot. And because Marcus Morris started 6 of 6, Reggie Jackson got off to a great start. You mentioned Boogie comes in, and Boogie give you valuable minutes, 15 points in 11 minutes. I thought that allowed PG to play within himself. He doesn't have to force the issue because he's like, you know what? Hey, it's going to be a great day for me. And you're right. He was missed 5 shots in 40 minutes of play. He was spectacular. He was. There's give the man his flowers. You mentioned, and I didn't think he could, because when Ty Lue said it's very doable coming back and winning the series, I was like, yeah, if you got LeBron that's going to give you 41 and Kyrie's going to give you 41. I didn't see Paul George giving them 41. I did not see Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris Sr. giving you 45 between the two. So when I look at it from that perspective, you're right, playoff Paul played really well, but I'm not going to say he deserved all the credit because I think Marcus Morris getting up to the start that he got up to, Skip, I think that played a big role in allowing Paul George to relax, play within himself, and get quality shots.
Okay. Did we lose Chris or something happen? Oh, okay. So it's just
you and I.
Okay.
Okay.
It shakes me that you have swung wildly from Pandemic P back to Playoff P, and that you're giving Paul George an A++ for last night. And it shakes me that Chris Broussard just said it was an all-time great performance and that it was all about Paul George. It was not all about Paul George last night, and I should know because I have sweated and lived and died with this team the way nobody has. And it has become, for me, by far the most frustrating team that I have ever tried to root for over a period of time. It torments me. It haunts me. It's excruciating to watch much of the night because it's baffling how wildly the roller coaster rolls, the highs and the pathetic lows that this team will give you even on a night when they prevailed by a pretty sizable margin. Right. So I thought that Paul George yesterday, I predicted he'd go 30, 13, and 10, a triple-double, which if I told you those numbers, they pale in comparison to what ended up happening. But when I said that, I'm sure you were just scoffing at me. We did it right at the end of, no, 30, 13, and 10. And yet, even my prediction went right out the window in the first quarter because he looked like he had hit the wall, both mentally and physically. Because I'm going to say it again, he has played, Paul George, 130 more minutes than anybody else in the playoffs. He has played 150 more minutes than anybody else on his team. Reggie Jackson is second. 150 minutes behind playoff P.
And you mentioned, Skip, he only had 3 points. He only took 3 shots in the first quarter.
And he wound up with 6 turnovers for the game. He had 2 in the first quarter and should have had 3. There was another just this lackadaisical pass that that got knocked up in the air.
He ended up getting it back.
And he had to recapture the ball. So I am trying to watch him play, thinking he is deadheaded. He's playing almost like in slow motion because, and even Van Gundy is saying, Paul, you have to realize it's like you're trying to pass like there's no defense out there. So could we again see the 2 turnovers that he did commit in the first quarter, because they're of the variety of what are you thinking? It's like he just tries to throw a pass that is clearly not there. He tries to throw it through the whole defense. Well, that went through 3 Suns. That's not going to get home. And then this one, it's just late and it's easily stolen.
I mean, DeAndre Ayton is in the paint looking at you. He's looking at you.
Like, thank you. It's almost like a bounce pass to DeAndre Ayton. And it was so bad that I'm thinking, who cares if they jumped off to a 20-5 start? Because it felt like Pandemic P had returned and was allowing them back into the game. Well, who saved the day in the first quarter? Marcus Morris. And I've told you again and again, it feels like this team goes as he goes.
Right.
And he went off. He made 6 or 7. Well, he made his first 6 shots.
Right.
And he scored, what, 13 in the first quarter.
Yep.
And that plus Reggie Jackson, who you can see, made 4 shots in the first quarter.
2 or 3 from 3.
Okay, there you go. And that's how they hung on to a 10-point lead after 1 quarter.
Yep.
So it had nothing to do with Paul George, because I thought he was a no-show, and I figured he would be a no-show for the rest of the game.
Because they probably would have been behind had Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson not gotten off to their start, Skip, because they scored 25 of the 36.
Okay. So now we go to the third quarter, and here came Phoenix right on schedule, and Shannon Sharpe is up celebrating. He thinks he's got this, and Chris Paul hits a shot, and they are up 62-61. 8:27 left in the third quarter. And Paul George comes back down on the next possession and makes the most awkward-looking shot I've seen in a long time. I don't know what he was doing. He's almost like stubs his foot in the ground, and it goes up, and somehow it dropped. I don't know how it went in, but it dropped. And now he's off to the races, and he's starting to feel it, and he makes another shot. And he makes 2 free throws. And by the way, he was 8 for 8 from the free throw line, and we know he's had his problems at the free throw line. And here he goes again. Now he's really starting to feel it, and suddenly that 1-point lead is a thing of the past, because he shoves down Chris Paul, got away with a little Jordan-esque shove, makes his first 3, and then here he goes again, and he said, I am on fire, and I got this, and then he comes with a little 2-point jump shot. This is extraordinary.
Right.
This is like off the charts now, where he finishes it off with a 3 from the top of the circle, and that is 18 points scored by Paul George after Phoenix took a 1-point lead. Yep. Well, you want to talk about timely contributions.
He scored 20-32 in the third.
In the third. Well, that's all we really needed at that point, right?
That's special.
Okay, so now they're clinging to the lead, and what happens in the fourth quarter? He had a little rest, but he comes back in at 9:18, and he looked like he was completely out of both mental and physical gas. And if we could see the 2 quick turnovers that he committed there, they're of the what are you thinking variety, where I'm about ready to tweet, get him out of there. This is the guy who's about to score 41 points. That's just nonchalant, careless. And then he tries this, where he just loses the basketball sideways, and Cam Johnson's off the races, and he ones it, and that cuts your lead down to 4. Yep. 98-94, and I'm thinking, this is going to be a problem.
They shoved Torrey Craig, and he had a chance to cut it to 3.
And he missed the free throw, but they got the ball back.
Right.
And they missed again. And guess who? Mr. June shows back up.
Yep.
Reggie Jackson, who's become the closer for this team, then if we could see this, makes 3 straight shots that seal the deal.
Skip, I was done. After he hit this one right here, Skip, I was done. He hit the shot right here, I was like, yep, we done.
Whoops. Around and around and down. Thank you very much. Sometimes you need a little luck.
I promise you, the Suns.
And that was not lucky, that one.
I promise you, Skip, the Suns were thinking the exact same thing I was thinking. That shot goes in.
And once he dunked on Chris Paul, I said, game over. Thank you very much.
You up there celebrating?
I was celebrating.
You told Ernestine she can come back in the room. You let Hazel back in.
Actually, they went to bed. They did. They'd had enough. They'd heard all the yelling and screaming. I didn't even let them watch with me, and they just said, we're out. We went to sleep.
I don't blame them.
They did. They went to sleep.
I don't blame them.
Yep.
And if I was Ernestine, I'd lock the bedroom door and say, you sleep in your room tonight.
Well, I did. And so the point was, they end up winning that game by 14 points.
Yep.
Right?
They did.
So in the end, the Clippers have now won more games in a playoff run while trailing in a series than any game in the history, any team in the history of the league.
Right.
What? They've won 7 times while trailing in series.
Yeah.
Well, they have a chance to keep on keeping on, right?
And now Ty Lue is 10-2 all time when facing elimination.
Really?
He's 3-0 so far this year.
I'll take that.
He's the as far as facing elimination, he has the best. Yes.
Whew.
Yes.
Wow. So in the end, Patrick Beverley came up big. Again, you can say that he got away with this or that or this, but again, he's a difference maker.
Right.
Nicholas Batum is a difference maker because he makes all the little plays. He gets all the loose balls.
The thing you think you got to lay up, DeAndre Ayton is about to get a rebound, and here comes Batum knocks it out of his hand.
He just knows how to play basketball.
He does. It's the little things. Skippy, he's not going to score 30 points, but he does all the little stuff. Patrick Beverley had a good third quarter, Skip.
He did.
He didn't do much in the fourth quarter, but the third quarter, he had 5 points, 2 or 3 from the floor, 1 or 2 from the three-point line.
Yep.
But that's not what anything that Pat Beverley gives you on the offensive end is icing. His whole thing is the cake for him is on the defensive end. Make Chris Paul, make Devin Booker life as miserable as possible.
And he has.
He's been great.
And he will.
Yes. But I believe in Book. Book coming back.
You do?
Yeah. Book gonna come back and get him.
To come back?
Maybe he should just forget about that mask. Right?
Distracting at that point?
Maybe it's all about the mask.
I need CP3 and Book. Instead of going 17 of 41, I need y'all to go like 20 or 30 between the two of y'all.
Well, you're betting on the wrong horses.
No mercy. Well, Paul George had an efficient night in the Clippers' Game 5 win. PG-13 racked up 41 points on 15 of 20 shooting from the floor. That included 3 of 6 from deep and a perfect 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Teammate DeMarcus Cousins defended PG-13 after the game, saying he's taken a bad rap. Take a listen.
I don't know where this trolling has come from, where the internet controls the narrative about these players. It's becoming foolish, man. Like I said earlier in the year, that's one of the most special players to ever lace his shoes up. Get this dude his flowers, man. I don't understand the slander.
How about that? All right, Chris Broussard back with us. So, Chris, I start with you. How much truth is there to that?
Well, first, I think he started off very true, talking about social media. And guys, people on social media who would fawn all over Paul George and other NBA stars, Boogie Cousins, if they saw them in public, asking for selfies and pictures and things like that, are sometimes ruthless on social media. The thing is, that happens to everybody, all right? Even Michael Jordan, there's the crying Jordan meme. So everybody gets mocked to a degree on social media. So he's right in that. Then he goes on to talk about Paul George and being a special player. Now, look, you guys know I sat on here last week and I said that Paul George is probably a Hall of Famer. And I think that this run in the playoffs, even as he's had his ups and downs, this is a nice run. I mean, this is a special run to score 20 straight points or 20 points in 18 straight playoff games. Only Durant, Jordan, and one more person, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, have done that. LeBron.
No, LeBron didn't do it. You talking about the 20 points. The 20 points in 18 consecutive games?
Yeah.
Kobe did it in 2008.
Yes. Kobe, Jordan, and Durant. All right, so that's special company. All right, and I think if they go, like a game like last night is one that people will remember when they think about his Hall of Fame case. If they somehow come back and win this series, I actually think Paul George solidifies it. Case closed. He'll be a Hall of Famer. And so if depending on how broad you go, I mean, Boogie is going really broadly to say that he's one of the most special players ever to play the game. The Hall of Fame is phenomenal, obviously. But everybody in the Hall of Fame, I wouldn't say is one of the most special. Ben Wallace just got in, right? Just got put in the Hall of Fame. I wouldn't say he's one of the most special players ever to lace up sneakers. Dennis Johnson, who was great for the Celtics in Seattle, I wouldn't say he's one of the most special players that ever lace up sneakers. So I just don't feel comfortable saying that about Paul George. I don't think he's a top 10 small forward of all time. He's obviously got a little time to strengthen his case over the next several years. But I can think of a dozen guys at small forward that I would put before Paul George and even more than that. So the statement, one of the most special guys to ever lace him up, that doesn't really sit well with me. I don't think of Paul George like that. But I do think he is solidifying and strengthening his case to be a Hall of Famer. So if you go really broad, as Boogie apparently wants to, then I guess.
Damn, Hall of Famer, a guy that doesn't get a ring, never was an MVP, never was a Finals MVP, never been an All-Star Game MVP.
Tracy McGrady.
Ah, dang.
No,
never won a playoffs.
Okay, you're right.
In fact, I think you're in the Basketball Hall of Fame as well as in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, right?
Chris, let me ask you this. So when all
the
these
standards
guys,
are a little lower. Yeah.
Chris, so let me ask you this. When all these players in Paul George's face, from the Devin Bookers and all these guys saying you soft, you ain't this, you ain't that, is that social media driven, or is that the players that play the game talking to him?
No, that's fair. I mean, look, as Skip said, he opened himself up to that. As much as we obviously support mental health, you know, when you in a cutthroat game, dudes will use that to go against you. And so I think that's a part of it.
But the problem that I have, look, and I love that men and women are addressing the mental health issue. I really do, Chris. But when he was flying on cloud nine, he never mentioned that. It wasn't until he started to falter, he started choking and choking and choking that he brought this. Now, he might have been dealing with that. But when he was freewheeling, finishing third in the MVP, as Skip brought up, he didn't mention anything. He didn't mention anything. That's my only problem. But he gave himself the name Playoff P. I had Ashley go back and said, I want you to find out the first time that a player or a coach or someone mentioned the word Playoff P. It was in 2018, before the final, before they played Utah. That was the first time, and he mentioned it. So if you give yourself a name, Playoff, or you give yourself a name, Skip, I didn't give my name Big Play Shay. They gave me that because in the playoffs, I made a big play. So they started.
I would think Ray gave it to you.
Trent Difford gave me that name. But Skip, you give yourself a name. You give yourself a name like that. I mean, you got to live up to it and win. The playoffs, not the regular season. Eastern Conference Finals. When he took that big three, Miami Heat, he was 7 points, 2 of 9.
Right.
Against LeBron this last year, he's 5 of 21. They got swept. Against Utah, he was 2 of 16, 5 points. That's playoff P. You didn't say regular season P. You said playoff P. Magic Johnson.
So you think he's not a Hall of Famer? Or, you know, you would make the case against it. I
don't know. Like Skip said, I mean, with that resume, I mean, never won a scoring title, never been an MVP. But hey, you might be Skip. Hey, Chris, you follow it.
Guys like that.
You vote. So you would know better than I. All I know is last night he was special, and I haven't seen enough of this for him to warrant the name, call himself Playoff P. And then when people criticize him, he get all upset and talking about, you know, we talking sideways.
Okay. I believe that Paul George is a rare talent because you just can't find 6'8", long, who can play defense at such a high level that he's made 4 all-defense teams. He's a very good shooter. He's a great free throw shooter. He's a very good three-point shooter. So he's in LeBron's ballpark in talent. I'm not saying he's better than LeBron, but he has much of what LeBron has. He's a very good passer. He's not LeBron, but it's quite a package of ability that he has.
Yeah.
Which is why he has become, for me, the most conflicting, confounding player I've ever tried to root for on a consistent basis. Because I don't know from quarter to quarter what I'm going to get from pandemic P or playoff P.
Right.
But he has high capability of going playoff P on you when you least expect it. See last night's third quarter.
Right.
And when I look at the overall numbers, like you brought this one up, he's on 20-plus scoring games. To start off a playoff run, he's up to 18. Well, the all-time record is Jordan in 92 went 22 straight.
Right.
So could playoff P, if he scores 20-plus and they win this series and he gets to the finals?
Sure, absolutely.
Could he break Jordan's record for consecutive opening games of 20-plus points?
Yes.
Because it's not hard for him to get 20-plus because that's just pretty much what he does, right?
Yeah.
And I look at his numbers since he came in the league. His playoff numbers, there are only two other players who have put up these kind of numbers, and they're beyond him, but it's obviously LeBron and KD.
Right.
But he's third on that list in just overall impact numbers in playoff games. Yet, if you look at his playoff record in his 107 playoff games, he's 51 and 56. So he's lost more than he's won.
Yes.
What does that tell you? That he didn't dominate those games.
Right.
He, like LeBron, you look at LeBron's overall record, it's just extraordinary because he's way over 500 because he's that guy.
Right.
Well, is this guy that guy?
No.
Not always. Not enough. He can be. He was last night, right? But there are few players capable of putting up the numbers he put up last night.
Well, that's what's frustrating because you see what he does and you know what he's capable of. And Chris, far too many times in big moments, he doesn't do it.
Okay.
What do you think,
so,
Chris?
Skip, you think Boogie's statement about him being one of the most special guys to lace up sneakers
I buy that. But Boogie's being naive if he says, I don't know where this internet narrative comes from. Well, it came from the bubble. Yeah. And he inflicted it upon himself. And to your point, he inflicted the nickname upon himself. Right. You can't call yourself playoff P if you can't consistently live up to that nickname.
But Chris and Skip, he had faltered in the playoffs outside of the bubble. He make it seem like the bubble was an isolated incident. Did he not remember what happened just the year before? Do he not remember what happened his last year in Indy? He got swept by LeBron, and in Game 4, he was awful. Yep. Does he not remember? He got in the Eastern Conference Final.
Wait a second. Remember Game 1 of, we're going back
against LeBron.
Was that our first year on Undisputed?
When he passed the ball to C.J. Miles.
He was running from the last shot.
It did say C.J. got to give me the ball back. You passed the ball to the man with 2 seconds. It did say get a basketball back. But Chris, if you go back and look at Paul's career, when he was given the big three in Miami fits, there was no expectations. Once he made a name for himself, now comes expectations with that. And remember, one of the biggest killers of careers is expectations. Everybody can't handle those expectations. We expect you to go give us 25 and 7 and 8 every playoff game. And when the rubber needs to meet the road, you come through for us. More times than not, he hasn't been able to do that. Reggie Jackson did not give himself the name Mr. October, and then come October, he's striking out. He came through. Not only with the Yankees, but people don't remember when he was with the A's.
I do.
So,
see, and that's what, to me, is one of the most impressive things about this run by Paul George. Because now the expectations are there. Obviously, they weren't even when he entered the playoffs because you had Kawhi to kind of hide behind. Obviously, you had to play well, but Kawhi was the man. And now he's the man. I agree with you, Shannon, because that's when his playoff performances began to go south, right? Against the Big Three, it was great. And then after he became the man in Indiana when the Big Three was disbanded, that's when he began to struggle. Oklahoma City, he struggled, and now the expectations is like he's finally embracing him. And I don't think he's fully there. Like, when we watch Paul George, I feel like there's a war going on in his head.
Yep, I agree.
Now, maybe, are we projecting because of, the statements he's made? I don't know, maybe. But it seems like there's a war going on in his head. And I even think last night, as much as I praised him for his performance, I think early on, obviously he started slowly. And when he saw Morris had it going and Boogie got it going, I think that relaxed him.
Yeah,
he's like, okay, these guys are playing well. It's going to be some help. And then he kind of played his game. So, but Skip, I still, as much as I have a problem with saying he's one of the most special to lace him up. When I hear that, I'm thinking at the small forward, I'm thinking LeBron,
Larry Bird, KD,
Durant, Dr. J, Elgin Baylor, maybe in one sense Pippen for his defense and playing with Jordan, but I'm not ready to put Paul George there yet.
Okay, but how many players are capable of going for 20 and a quarter of a huge game, a closeout game?
Terrence Mann did it. Okay. So is Terrence Mann one of the most special people we've ever seen? He did it.
We've seen Paul do it fairly regularly. We've also seen Pandemic P fairly regularly. And for me, the classic, vintage, excruciating Paul George that I try to love and can't was the end of Game 2 of this series, because from the 240 mark down to the 22nd mark at Phoenix in Game 2, he scored 9 points, and they were big-time scores where you say, that's just unstoppable.
Right.
That guy, that's the man.
Right.
And then he has 2 free throws to make it a 3-point game with 20 seconds left, and he clanked both of them. Well, there's the guy.
What about Game 4?
Yep.
How many did he clank in the fourth quarter?
It was just horrendous. He cost them that game.
We just all the bad we turned away from, and we only just focus on the good. That's what Boogie want us to do. So everything that Paul George has done in meaningful ball games, yes, Paul George is immensely talented. He went to the All-Star game again. I get all that. He's been an All-NBA player, both offensively and defensively. I get that.
Well, whose career reminds you of Paul George's? How about DeMarcus Cousins?
Yeah.
Is he not sort of the same guy where I've done all this great stuff, but I've done a lot of dumb stuff?
Right.
You know, like.
And the thing is, Boogie, I mean, how many times has Boogie actually been a part of a team that's made the playoffs? Remember, he got hurt in New Orleans.
He did.
He got hurt with the Lakers.
Yep.
He was, basically he was like a fill-in,
Well, he was Golden State got hurt.
Yeah,
right?
he got hurt in Golden State because he tore his quad.
Yep.
So,
I think Boogie was talking a little bit about himself last night. You know, because at the end he was like, give these players their credit. You know,
give me my credit.
I think he was throwing himself in there.
Give me a break.
But Boogie, I will concede this. Before you got injured, you were special. Because we were having the discussion, Chris, who's better, Boogie or AD? Because when he was in Sacramento and when he first got to New Orleans, he was something to behold. But injuries, the Achilles and the ACL and the torn quad.
But you saw little glimmers of that last night.
Yeah. He was never an elevator.
No.
Leaper. But you see, he still got moves. He still can put the ball on the floor.
And he can still pass the basketball.
Yes.
No mercy. Well, safe to say, the Clippers will need another huge game out of Paul George tomorrow night in Game 6. The Suns need just one win to eliminate LA and head to the finals. Phoenix head coach Monty Williams says the Suns need to play with, quote, desperation tomorrow night. Chris Broussard, well, you're still with us. So, Chris, it's a simple question. Who wins Game 6?
I got the Clippers winning. And I admit, I went away from my original prediction. My prediction going into the series was Phoenix in 7. I'm feeling really good about that pick right now.
Okay.
But I deviated from it yesterday, and I said Phoenix would close them out in 5. Obviously, I was wrong about that. But I think Monty Williams hit it on the head when he used the word desperation. These teams are incredibly evenly matched. Now, obviously, if you have Kawhi there, the Clippers have the advantage. But without him, I think they're very similar and close to each other as far as ability. And so when that is the case, desperation is oftentimes the difference. So in games 1 and 2, Phoenix is without Chris Paul, their inspirational leader, right? They're desperate because they know we're playing without him. They win the first 2 games. Game 3, obviously, the Clippers are desperate because you can't go down 3-0. They win that game. And then Game 5 last night, the Clippers are desperate again because their backs are against the wall. So they win that game. Game 6, the Clippers still are more desperate. Now, I know Phoenix is going to tell itself we got to play with desperation and all that. But these young guys, Ayton and Booker, first time in the playoffs, and I know they've been good, but they really haven't faced that much adversity. First series, LeBron's playing on a bad ankle, Anthony Davis is injured. Second series, there's no Jamal Murray in Denver. And so that's where they haven't had to face the adversity that they're facing now. So in their first playoff series or season, will those guys be able to muster up the desperation when their backs aren't really against the wall? We always hear players say the closeout game is the toughest game to win. And it's because of the desperation. So I don't know that the young guys can muster that up when it's not really there yet. Game 7, I think it'll be there, and they'll be fine. But I expect Paul George to come out with another strong game. And Reggie Jackson, I'm feeling now like I can really count on Reggie. Like, I kind of feel like he's probably the reliable guy on the Clippers. Now, he's not going to give me 30-something like Paul George can do, but I can count on him to give me a good 20, hit a few big threes. So I think the Clippers playing with desperation even this thing up at 3 games apiece.
But I disagree because I think the pressure, because we did what we wanted to do. In order for us to get back to home, we had to win Game 5. Now that you're back home, everybody expects us to win Game 6, Chris, because we're in our building. We're going to be playing in front of 16,000. I guess they'll have a capacity crowd at Staples Center. And so for me, I'm looking at it like, okay, Suns, you approached this game like it was a regular season game. You just thought, oh, we in Phoenix, and our crowd is going to be electric, and we're just going to show up, and everything's going to be okay. You forgot who you're playing against. Chris Paul, you said it after the game. That team just don't quit. That team has a lot of fight. Did you forget the words that you uttered on Saturday? Because it seems like you did, because you guys sleptwalked the first quarter, and you gave up 36 points. Now, I don't believe that Marcus Smart is going to play that well again in the first quarter. I don't believe they're going to play that well again. I don't believe they can get the 36 points again in the first quarter. If they do, they'll probably win. Chris Paul and Devin Booker are due for games in which they shoot better than 40% from the field, because they haven't shot the ball particularly well. Chris Paul is 19 of 60, and they've lost 2 of the 3 games. Skip, we pulled a stat, my research, she on it. Ash is on it. Boogie Cousins played in 14 playoff games. Did you know 15 points was his career high? You believe he's going to replicate that again? He's going to get another career high? I don't believe that. You don't? I don't believe that. So I'm feeling good about that. I felt so good about it, Chris. I put 3 cases. But here's the elephant in the room. The Suns are not a better team without Chris Paul. But their 15 points higher offensive rating with him off the court is when him on the court. And you mentioned when he was out, you look how they push the pace. Look at him when he's on the court. They slow the pace down. He's allowing the Clippers to set their defense. Push that ball. Get that ball in transition. And let D.A. eat. D.A., issue a subpoena. Chris Paul, give me the you-know-what ball. Payne, give me the ball. They can't see me down here on this block.
He's starting to be a pain in your you-know-what.
Right? Cameron Johnson needs to start, too, because he can play defense just as bad as Jay Crowder and Mikal Bridges, but he's going to give you more offensively.
I would agree with that.
Cameron Johnson needs to get by 20, 25 minutes and watch it.
So, Shannon Sharpe and Chris Broussard, there's an even bigger elephant in the room that, I don't know, silly me, I'm noticing that you two aren't.
What?
I think even without Kawhi Leonard and without Zubats and without even Serge Ibaka, I just think the Clippers are still a little better than the Suns, and they keep proving it game after game after game. Scoring differential so far through the 5 games, the Clippers are plus 17 through the 5 games over the Phoenix Suns. Right. So when they win much more convincingly than the Suns do, and when they lose, the Clippers, they don't lose by much. Haven't been blown out one time in this whole playoff run. And they are now up to a record 7 games that they have won when trailing in playoff series. No one's ever done that before. So to me, it's not about pressure, because the truth is the pressure is still on the Phoenix Suns. The truth is the greatest pressure is not on Paul George. It's on Chris Paul III, because he's never been to a finals in his career. And we're getting toward the end of his career. And wait a second, he's blown a couple of 3-1 leads already. So now the specter of another blown 3-1 lead has got to start eating at him. And he is now, over his last 2 games, 0 for 9 from 3. 2 for 16 in the 3 games he has played in this series from 3.
Right.
So I'm looking at it like the Clippers have to be feeling a little better about themselves and their plight, because they love this plight. This is all they've ever done. Nobody had ever come back from 0-2 down in consecutive playoff series. They already did that. So what's 3-1 down to them? They are at their best when they're at their worst. And they are obviously up against it now. Game 5, Game 6, and Game 7. But I don't think they feel any pressure. The pressure was on the Clippers only once in the series, and it was Game 4 at home, because if you want to do it conventionally, you need to even the series at 2-all. And once they didn't do that, it's like, well, here we go again. And Ty Lue said, yeah, it's very doable. And I think they bought it because they know they are a little better than the Phoenix Suns.
Well, that's what the Phoenix Suns need to do. They need to get them to the 4th quarter and let it be a back-and-forth ball game. You look at the 2 ball games that they won, the games weren't close in the 4th quarter. Yeah, I mean, Chris Paul gave them a lead in the 3rd, but then they took off and didn't look back. Get them to the 4th quarter.
Well, they got it to 98-94 last night.
No. I wanted to be a bucket. I make one, I go ahead. You make a bucket, you go ahead. I wanted to go tit for tat.
Okay, but it looked like it was going to be tit for tat in the 3rd quarter when they suddenly jump up 62-61. You want to talk about a short-lived lead? That 1-point lead lasted seconds, and then that was it for the rest of the night.
You talking real big and bold
because I'm even looking at points in the paint last night.
Yeah, Chris crushed us.
58-32.
That was the first time all series.
What?
It can't happen.
And where was the dominator, as they called DeAndre?
God, they wasn't beating the ball. You know where he was.
Well, I don't know. He was guarded by Marcus Morris and Batum.
Oh, you calling him out? Say it. Call him out.
I'm not calling him out. I'm just stating the fact.
That's what I thought.
I don't know where he was. But I didn't know where he was a couple times against the Lakers.
Okay.
What happened?
Watch he issue that subpoena to Chris Paul.
Will
Watch Chris Paul feed it.
Okay. Well,
why would I tell you?
You don't even want Chris Paul in the game. You want him to be replaced.
I wanted to push the ball. That's what I needed him to do. I needed him to push the ball.
Shannon Sharpe is campaigning to replace Chris Paul in the starting lineup.
No, I did not.
Said this man.
I said Cam Johnson should be in the starting lineup.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, you hit it on the head, Skip. The pressure is on Chris Paul. I mean, he's gotten a ton of praise, well-deserved this year. Some thought he was the MVP because what he did with Phoenix. But they go ahead and win the first 2 games without him. And now, as you said, they've lost what?
Two or three
now
with
it's
him.
3-2. They've lost 2 of 3 with him. Here's a stat for you, Shannon, that you mentioned, I think, Ayton.
Yeah.
Devin Booker, with Chris Paul on the court in this series, he's averaging 18 points per 36 minutes on 33% shooting, 29% from 3. Without Chris Paul, 27 points per 36 minutes, 43% shooting, 36% shooting from 3. So Chris is not going to push it. Chris is a slow player. He might be being too deliberate and controlling everything a little too much.
Yes.
For these young guys. I mean, I think he's got to get out. You're right, he's got to play faster, but I don't know if that's in him.
Well, they need to get in.
Just like I've talked about how him getting to the finals or winning the championship would be a huge boost for his legacy, if they somehow lose this series, it's really going to be a knock against him.
Oh, and he got several knocks because he has those 3-1 wins. Remember in L.A., and they lost on their home court by 19.
They did.
So he's gonna have to come through. He's gonna have to come through. But they got them young legs. Bridges, and Crowder's not that young, but Bridges and Booker and Ayton and Cam Payne and Cam Johnson, Craig, they need to run. Let them run. You saw what they did when they didn't have Chris Paul. Cam Payne was pushing it. Push it.
He was.
Like Salt Pepper, push it real good.
He was unguardable. Paul George couldn't guard him.
We got something for you. We're going to push it. We're going to push the tempo on you, Skip.
You're going to push it?
I got the Clippers in Game 6, just as I had the Clippers in Game 5.
No mercy.
Scottie Pippen did not hold back while talking about his new book and Phil Jackson. When talking about a play drawn up for teammate Tony Kukoc to take a final shot, Pippen said of Phil, quote, "It was a racial move to give him a rise. After all I've been through with this organization, now you're going to tell me to take the ball out and throw it to Tony Kukoc. You're insulting me. That's how I felt." A follow-up question was asked if Pippen thought Phil was racist, and Pippen said, quote, "Oh yeah." Scottie also said Phil, quote, "exposed Kobe in a way that he shouldn't have when he first left the Lakers," and wrote about the Lakers guard before returning to coach LA again. There's a lot here. Shannon, what do you make of Scottie saying this about Phil Jackson?
Well, let me take the first part about the play first, Skip.
Okay.
I don't believe that's true. I believe Scottie was frustrated. Scottie had been number 2 for 7-8 years. Number 1 steps away. Number 2 believes that once number 1 is away, I'm number 1. Because you would have never asked Michael Jordan, not saying that Scottie Pippen was Michael Jordan, but you would have never asked Michael Jordan to inbounds a ball to me. So why, if it's my time, I've been the best player, I was the All-Star Game, Skip, remember, he was the All-Star Game MVP.
He was.
So why are you asking me to do that? And considering what Scottie must understand is that this was never going to go away. This was never going to, this is the one thing that you can't come back from, Skip. He won 3 more championships, but they still go back to this. Skip, Shoeless Joe Jackson has the second highest lifetime batting average in baseball history, 358.
Yep.
But that's not what he's known for.
But that whole team was the Black Sox stand.
Skip.
Yeah.
You can't, Skip, the worst thing an athlete can do is quit. Ain't no way around it, Skip. I like Pip. He quit. He refused to go in the game. He said, you know what? I'm going to sit right here. Bill Cartwright is begging with him. Scottie, don't do this. Get in the game, bruh. No. So he quit. And considering Tony Kukoc hit the shot, it's hard to argue with that Phil was placed his trust in Tony. Because he hit the shot, Skip. I just don't get, I understand that he's selling a book. But some things, Skip, you just don't throw stuff out there like this.
Nope, you do not.
Now, the Kobe thing, I agree with Scottie. Phil was wrong. You don't put the man out there. There's certain things that go on in the locker room, Skip, and that's one of the reasons I haven't wrote a book about my playing life. Because certain things, you just take to your grave. You just chalk that one up and say, you know what, boy, man, we were crazy. We did some crazy things in high school and in college and for sure in the NFL. You just take it to your grave. Even at gunpoint, I ain't telling you jack.
Okay. Got it.
And for Phil to do this, to write a book, and then you go back and coach the guy, but that just goes to show you Kobe's level of professionalism. But Kobe ain't give a damn about what you said about him. Kobe ain't never cared about what anybody said about him. It didn't matter. Mom, dad, brother, uncle, cousin, friend. It didn't matter.
Can you help me win?
Kobe had a secret. This was Kobe. All that other stuff that's going on, I don't see nothing. All I see is a title. And I see hard work in between for me to get to that title. So what you say on either side, it doesn't even matter.
Okay, I'm going to say this again about Scottie Pippen, and I was there in 1998 covering that Bulls team.
Okay.
Big picture. Everything you're hearing from Scottie now is all about his attempted revenge for The Last Dance, in which he felt shamed by Michael Jordan in that documentary, and in the large part, he was shamed. So now he's going to be as outrageous as possible. He's going to go a little over the edge whenever he's given the opportunity, in this case by Dan Patrick, just to create more controversial interest in his upcoming book, which isn't even out yet. But his book is going to be his revenge for The Last Dance. It's going to be his answer to The Last Dance. Okay, so we get all of that. But do I think there was some racist component to Phil's decision-making to give the ball to Kukoc? Kukoc had made several late shots that year and one walk-off shot on that same play. So all Phil was trying to do was win the game. And I remind everybody, Kukoc was Jerry Krause's boy. He was Jerry Krause's discovery as the Michael Jordan of Europe. And so wait a second, if Phil Jackson is at war with Jerry Krause, why would he go out of his way to spotlight Tony Kukoc on the last play just because he's white? No, he's Jerry's boy. You don't want to do that. All Phil was trying to do was win the basketball game. And again, in Phil's mind, Scottie had never been anything but Robin.
Right.
And he wasn't that guy. He wasn't a last shot taker and maker.
Right.
That would be Kukoc's role post-Jordan, in the wake of Michael Jordan. That's who you'd want with the ball in his hands. So it makes all the sense in the world. And speaking of Michael Jordan, I don't think he thought Phil was racist, because all Jordan did was simply quit prematurely just because his coach had been done wrong by Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf. He made it clear that whole 1998 year, you run off my coach, you run off me.
Right.
And he stood by his word. And he was retired for 3 years from age 30, what was he, 6 at that point, or 30, really 5.
Yeah.
You know, those are still 3 fairly prime years of his career. He did not play basketball just to uphold his allegiance to Phil Jackson. So did he think Phil was racist? I don't think so.
Even after that call, Skip, Scottie, they were a blown Hugh Hollins call away from getting to the Eastern Conference Finals.
They were.
People don't really. Scottie Pippen was really good, Skip. They only lost 2 fewer games that year without Michael than the year before when they had Michael and went to the NBA Finals. Scottie Pippen played really, really well. He was the All-Star Game MVP.
Yep, I got it.
So,
and to your final point about Kobe, only the silver-tongued devil, quote-unquote, who is Phil Jackson, could manage to talk Kobe back into his inner circle after he had done Kobe wrong by airing dirty laundry in his book. What?
But,
you got away with that? Only Phil could do that one.
But I'm not surprised Phil went back. Phil was not going anywhere in which he did not have 2 great players. That's why he took a role at the Knicks. He ain't coaching the Knicks.
No.
He ain't messing up his tarnish. He ain't messing that up, Skip.
Agreed.
He had Scottie and Mike. He had Shaq and Kobe. And then he came back, oh, we can get Pau Gasol? Okay. I got one of the 2 best, whether you say it's LeBron or Kobe, but you had one of the 2 best players. You get another guy to go along with him, I'm right back in business. Phil Jackson ain't slick.
No mercy.
Saturday, the last 2 World Series champs collide as Mookie Betts and the Dodgers take on Juan Soto, and the Nationals, or Bogarts and the Red Sox, take on the A's. Saturday, 7 Eastern, only on Fox. Check local listings for the game in your area. Scottie Pippen, well, he opened up and shared how he felt about Michael Jordan's first retirement to go pursue a baseball career. Pippen said it was, quote, a big decision, but it was a selfish decision. But it was kind of who Michael Jordan was. That was a guy who believed he could do anything on his own. Selfish? Woo, he's not holding back. Shannon, your reaction to Pippen's accusations?
Skip, some things. I don't believe no amount of money, for me, is worth ruining a friendship. Well, then maybe Scottie and Michael weren't as close as we previously thought.
I never thought they were close at all.
I get, you know what? I thought that until I saw The Last Dance.
Fair.
Then when I saw The Last Dance, I'm like, they're not close at all. Because, Skip, he put things in his documentary that happened in Chicago. He wasn't there. Why would I put in my story something about when you weren't even around? Now, if I want to write a book about my 10-year, 15-year here at Fox, that's one thing. But I'm writing about something that happened in the NFL, and I'm taking a shot at you when you weren't a part of that. That doesn't seem right to me. You're right. Scottie's not going to have a last dance. He said, but I'm going to get back at you because you called me selfish when I wouldn't have surgery. You called me selfish. Now,
That's exactly what happened.
He said, I've been holding this for about 30 years, Mike. All the while, I always thought you were selfish. You always thought that you could do this without me. Well, you couldn't. So this is my opportunity. Because he also said, Skip, that Steve Kerr play. He that was Michael. He said that thing was scripted. He said he looked right in the camera. He said that was for show. I'm like, Scottie, why you telling? You can't tell all this, Scottie.
You believe that happened?
Skip, no, I don't. Look. I don't know what to believe anymore. This is what I do believe. I believe Scottie Pippen is upset that Michael Jordan made him look bad, made him look worse. Because maybe some people that didn't know, Skip, a lot of people weren't born when Scottie did with this. And Michael regurgitated it. He put it right back on the table and said, y'all look at it again.
I agree.
That's what he did. Y'all keep on thinking
And it looked like regurgitation.
Yes. So for me, Skip, and for Scottie to take this, because remember when we was talking about it last year during the pandemic, people reached out to Scottie. Oh, I don't have no problem with what Mike said. You know, Mike's my guy. You know, we won championship together. All the while, he's seething.
Seething.
So this was about. You say these things about me, I'm going to say things about you, although it might not be true, but because people going to believe it, Skip, because he played with the guy. So it's hard to go against a guy that played how many years? What, 10 years? Oh, no. They played 87. I think Scottie got drafted in 87. Mm-hmm. So from 87 to 98, 2 years, almost a year and a half interrupted. So, come on, Scottie.
So I had pretty good sources when I was the Chicago Tribune columnist during that 1998 season, and I was often told that Michael Jordan didn't quit on his own, that he was forced to take a basically 2-year vacation because of some gambling ties. And so you can't call him selfish because he just said, well, I guess I'll just try to play baseball.
Right.
Well, it wasn't his choice to play baseball.
Right.
He just did it because he had nothing else to do at that point because he couldn't play basketball.
Right.
And when he was allowed to come back, he obviously came back and picked it right back up where he left off. Mm-hmm. Then on the Kerr play, so you're presupposing, Scottie, that maybe the day before, after practice, Michael said, hey, tomorrow night it's going to come down to a last shot, and they're going to come double me. Stockton's going to leave you to come to me. So in the sideline huddle, I'm going to tell you, you take the shot, and then you go out and make the shot, and we'll do it for the cameras. Let's kind of rehearse it right now. Well, how could you presuppose that the game's going to come down to the last shot? And again,
I guess because he said Mike was kind of looking at the camera. He knew he knew where the cameras were. Okay. Because he also said, you better believe if Kerr doesn't come to double down, he's going to shoot that ball. Yeah, we should. So Michael Jordan made the right play. The play that LeBron gets criticized for, he got double teamed, he gets triple teamed, he makes a pass.
But he called his shot in the huddle, and how can you call a shot when you can't know exactly what the defense is going to be? But he knew.
Right.
He said, Stockton will come to me. You're going to be left wide open. You're going to make this shot. Yes. Well, if Michael Jordan tells you you're going to make a shot, you're going to make it. And Steve Kerr made it to win the game. Way to go.
I just don't know why Scottie would do. I get it, Skip. Look, sometimes people say things, and you just, hey, you just chalk it up, say, man, I thought we were better than that. I ain't saying we were the best of friends, but I thought we were better than that. Clearly. I mean, like I said, Skip, I don't agree with Mike. I don't believe Mike should have put that part in his documentary. I don't. I don't believe he should have said Scottie was selfish. I don't. Because he made Scottie, because Scottie wouldn't, hold on, Scottie tried to get money. I'm selfish. Scottie like, well, hold on, bro, you called me selfish, you quit.
Yep.
You left us. So what was that? So Scott, everything that Michael alleged about Scottie in his book, I mean in the documentary, Scottie said, I'm going to put this thing on and put it in black and white.
That is correct.
I'm going to put pen to paper on you.
This is becoming maybe the best feud in sports, but it's kind of one-sided right now.
Man, I can't. To sell a book, Skip, I mean, come on, man. People, I couldn't. I couldn't. No, there's no amount of money. Nobody could do anything. And none of my friends could do anything to me to make me do something like that.
Okay, but you used the operative word, seething. That's what he is. He's seething.
If you felt like you were wronged maybe really badly,
why not go to Jordan? Say, look here, Mike, man, why you do that?
Conversation.
Just go over there, take your shirt off and say, Mike, because we got to square up. Just knock on the door and say, Mike, we're going to square this thing up. Ain't nobody here with me and you.
I don't know
my
if
money's
that's how
on Jordan in that one.
What I'm saying, it might be, but you got to get your manhood back.
Don't upset Scottie right now. He's going to talk about it. No mercy. The Hawks' quest to come back from their 2-1 series deficit just got a bit more difficult. An MRI showed that Trae Young has a bone bruise in his foot and is now questionable for tonight's Game 4 in Atlanta. So, Shannon, what's Trae's line tonight if he plays, and what is the score?
Well, Skip, I mean, he's talking about how it was bothering him. Skip, if his whole thing is quickness. If he can't use the float game, if he can't, get into the paint and cause havoc, they can't win. They can't win with him scoring 15 points. He was doing well. He had, 32 3/4, and then he only ended up with 35, I think, because he had made 3 free throws. I'm going to say he's hampered, they're going to lose big. They're going to lose big if he's hampered. And this series will go back, and it'll be over with.
I didn't understand bone bruise.
Because that's what I thought. I thought it was his foot, Skip, because it looked like he stepped on the official's foot, and it like his ankle didn't roll like half of his foot. So it's like he got a foot problem more than his ankle.
All right. So after what I saw in the fourth quarter of Game 3, I do not trust his pain threshold anymore. So I think it's going to be a long night.
Because he said it was sore and hurting.
He did. So I'll give him like 18 points and 10 assists, which won't be nearly enough. And I'm afraid Milwaukee takes big control now. I'm going to say it goes Milwaukee 115 to 105 tonight.
But Giannis needs to cash in on this opportunity, Skip. he won't get a better path to the finals.
Yeah.
Because the Nets are going to come back, and you can't count on James Harden on one leg and Kyrie being hurt.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating. I hope Trey's able to at least give it a little go. That is it for Undisputed. Great stuff, guys. We're back same time tomorrow morning. The Herd is on now. Have a great day.